guess so. It looks like handouts.
Thank you.
I'm glad you found one.
Did you sign in? I have one place on that. Okay, perfect. Just so we can see it.
Stuff.
Stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Busier than me too.
That's no good.
It was missing, but now it works.
They moved it. How do you, what do you think? Better than this after the years?
For the most part, better.
Where
There
did you
were
see
some
it?
issues at the Algebras. It's just out in town further, so people don't have vehicles. They can't easily access some of the things that are within walking distance.
Oh, I see.
So the actual location of the hotel is the other, in my opinion. I didn't care for the hotel itself.
Yeah.
But it's a good location, isn't what they gave us? I think they gave us a very good deal.
I ran into Greg Heating last night. You know Greg?
Very well.
So Greg parks the car on the street, not knowing that they have Greg. So they towed his car. Oh, no. Yeah. They towed his car, cost $280. Poor Greg.
Especially since parking was included.
And
Yeah.
he's so fastidious.
Yes. I actually know how it is. Well. They don't charge it.
If anybody in the audience wants to address the board, it would be helpful if you'd fill out a card. You don't have to if you want to address the board, it would be helpful.
What was weird was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the paper survey, the 5 was 6 didn't. It was the other way. That was it was fine. Right. Just okay, I did fine. I look at the scale. The scale on mine has right to her to have made a mistake.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. We start our meeting with a pledge of allegiance. Please stand. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Second, then I'd like to comment.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Discussion?
So I'm a little concerned, but Mr. Jordan, maybe you can answer this for me. I believe that we can cover all of the items that were addressed in my comments to the board on August 27th under what under this agenda item, correct?
I took a look at the agenda item, as I sometimes do, but not always do, for purposes of Brown Act compliance. And under the Brown Act, as you may know, you have typically up to 20 words to describe an item, and those 20 words have to be reasonably related, so if the public wants to comment on anything on the agenda, they would know to be here. I think that agenda does it.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, I think Ed helped me here with item 4. The size of the group, maybe we don't want to do introductions, or
We're okay.
can we just proceed to 5? Is that all right, everybody?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, this is a period of public comment. I do have one card. Show of hands, anybody else wanted to speak? Okay. Okay. Thank you. I would just like, we've set some ground rules for the public comment section, and I'd just like to go over this with everybody in the room. The board has these. We ask you to fill out a card. You don't have to. Anybody who wants to speak, we'll provide an opportunity to speak. You may only speak on the item that's on the agenda today. That's item 6. The opportunity to address this item on the agenda is during the public comment period now. It's before and not during. Once we stop the public comment, the board will go into consideration, and the public will not be part of that. Please consider whether the point you've made has already been adequately addressed by other speakers. Please identify yourself and anyone you represent at the time you are called. Direct all remarks to the board, please. The board will not respond. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. We will give you a gentle warning at 2.5 minutes. We just ask that, depending on how many people speak, that you stick to your 3 minutes. Speakers cannot yield their time to anybody else. Okay. Given that criteria, we would like to hear from anybody who would like to talk. Does the board have anything to add to that? Okay.
I have a question. So when we get to item 6,
Yes.
and we've heard from Mr. Gerard answers to any questions that the board might have, either that we already have or that have been raised by comments from the public. There can be no further public comment because all public comment will be taken at this point.
Well, if it would be appropriate, we could open up public, and my point would be that once the board goes in discussion, that it's between the board, and we want to keep it to the board because it's the board addressing Mr. Gerard or staff or each other, and we don't want the public involved in that part of the conversation.
Understood.
So the board can focus on what they need to do.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all for being here. We're not normally blessed like this. I'll do the cards first, and then if anybody else wants to speak, I will give you a gentle warning at 2.5 minutes if you've gone that long. So, Nicholas, I think you turned the first card in.
Always has to be somebody first, yes. Nicholas Rideout, and with all due respect and fairness of full disclosure, this is about the 70th or 80th time I've been in front of the Board of Education. Or a span, my first paycheck came from EDCO in 1968. I've lived through 6 superintendents, countless boards, the John Birch Society, and a few other little tidbits of good times and bad times and budget cuts. And one of the most frequent questions has been the relationship between the board and the superintendent. I don't care about that. Whatever that is, that is. What I care about is the quality of the superintendent that I have worked for and worked with. Also, in full disclosure, I'm a substitute teacher, guest teacher now. I was director of Sugarloaf for about 25 years. You were all political animals. And as such, you have your own channels of authority and obligation towards each other. I would ask the board to remember that your obligation is to the children, and recognize the fact that whatever political gain that it may be for individuals to stir things up or to make things out of order, that the children are what counts. We have an excellent superintendent. I have several to compare from. Mr. Myers is an honorable man. He's a hard worker, and what he's done in his personal life is his own business and his own punishment, if it so be it. But it's never affected his work. I've seen that firsthand. I hear it second, third hand. He's one of the most respected individuals in this county. Please keep that in mind. And please be fair about your deliberations of what should be in public and what should be asked for with a trusted counsel that's been around for decades. And don't spend your money on outside counsel. Mr. Gerard has proven himself time and time again to be loyal to the board and to the Galvus and to the law. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Mary Lynn?
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Lynn Carlton. I'm here representing myself. I couldn't agree more with the first speaker. I believe that the superintendent is a man of great integrity and honesty, and we're all human. We all make mistakes. And I think in this case, probably he is hardest on himself more than anybody else could be. If I thought for 1 second that if he stayed on and remained in his role, if there would be harm to children, I would never be in favor of this. But I think that based upon my knowledge of the superintendent, and I've worked with him on many committees, he is extremely hardworking, loyal, and very good at what he does. Secondly, with regard to Mr. Gerard's been around in the education community working for several school districts, from my understanding, all over the state for many, many, many years. I, as a taxpayer, would really be disappointed if this board decided to bring in outside counsel to take care of any kind of discussion or answer questions that you thought you needed because you thought that Mr. Gerard would have a conflict. Mr. Gerard's a professional. I'm sure he would recuse himself if he perceived that there would be any conflict with any kind of deliberation. He would represent your board. So with that, I will finalize my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Chris?
Afternoon, trustees. I see that you have plenty of educators here, so I'm just going to speak as a child from El Dorado County. When I was in 3rd grade at Gold Oak School, we were told that we could not go down to that lower field because there was too many rattlesnakes. But, you know, the janitor and half the staff were down there having lunch. Even in 3rd grade, I understood what hypocrisy meant. Just like our kids today know what hypocrisy meant. Now, I like Jeremy. He's a nice guy. But it's not about Jeremy, it's about the kids. And he's a public figure. What he has taught, and not only a public figure, he is the lead public figure for education in the county. And as of today, what he has taught our kids is that, I think we started the year off with don't do drugs or alcohol as our theme for schools, and he's taught them, don't do what we say. Do what we do. Because he has laid it out there. 2 times the legal limit drinking. And a hand slap. Because he's powerful and has influential people. Now, what the trustees can do and what the legal limitations is probably more for the FPPC to determine that. But as a public official, he has an obligation to man up or step down. He has to either show the kids that there are real penalties for violating drunk driving. And the only way to do that at this point is for him to voluntarily step forward and explain to us what happened during that time period between 12 and 2:45. If he was still on the clock, FPPC violation, he loses his job, it's ministerial. If he has to stand up and explain, if he got a sweetheart deal, nobody blamed him for getting a sweetheart deal. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody is entitled to the best justice they can afford. But when his lawyer says this was not preferential treatment, not one of you would actually stand up and make that argument, because we all know it was preferential treatment. So we need to find out how it got to be preferential treatment. And if you think this is going to blow away, well, maybe on a school board level it will. But he's a politician. And this will be a campaign issue. And either he's going to man up or step down, or he's going to drag the entire education system of El Dorado County through the mud as he tries to defend himself and say, no, he didn't get special treatment. And no, don't do what I do. Don't drink and drive.
Chris, wrap it up, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody that did not fill out a card would like to speak?
Hello.
Do your name and who you
I am
represent?
Sheila Silent. I work here at the County Office of Education. I've been in the county for 27 years. I have spent the last 16 here. I work in a variety of programs that go across the county. So I work with a lot of our partners. I work with the district attorney. I work with law enforcement. I look with all the people that work with children. And I can tell you that Jeremy's vision and his leadership has been outstanding. And that we have confidence in him. We believe in him. We know what he does for us. And I would say that he's probably the least politician of anyone in that office that I have ever seen. I see someone that is dedicated to children, that would never do anything to endanger them or their education. And I just hope that we can move past this and allow our leader to do his job.
Thank you. Name and who you represent, please.
Sherry Malmercon, and I'm just a member of the public. I don't have children. I don't have anybody in school. I've been a student over at the Folsom EDC Center. I graduated from Folsom Lake. I graduated from Cal State. I'm a supporter of education like you can't believe. And I'm listening to these speakers who are supporting the superintendent, who I do not know. I don't know him from anybody except that Vicki said he was a good person and we can trust him. And I hear that he would never do anything to endanger children, to set a bad example, or do something that would hurt them. And yet, he made a choice as a public official to do something that he knew. I can't say he didn't know. If he didn't know, we got something wrong here. That you cannot drink and drive. No one can. Nobody. And when you get arrested, you don't get to say, oh, my wife will take me home. You don't. Your butt gets dragged to jail. That is the consequences for drinking, driving, and then having a wreck. If he really is doing what he says he's going to do, he would have said, gosh, maybe he doesn't have to step down forever, but I need to reassess what my priorities are. Is it a good idea for the superintendent to get drunk in the afternoon after going to a meeting? Is that appropriate? I mean, we know what happens. We've seen it. We've been places. If he gets busted, is he in trouble? Yes, he should be. Just like every other student would be. That's the example that has to be shown. That what we do matters. How we do it matters. In our public and our personal lives. If it was a teacher that had that happened to, would the teacher have been able to say, my husband or wife will take me home, don't worry about it, it's okay?
Please wrap it up.
I will wrap it up right now. That is what I came to talk to you about. I don't want this man to be dragged through the mud. I don't want the education dragged through the mud. But if we're going to really do what we say we're going to do, it's got to start at the top and go down. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you coming to speak?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Please do your name and who you represent.
I'm Ken Cater. I represent myself.
Okay, Ken.
I'm a 30-year resident of this county. Several of those years I was the county's chief probation officer. I have worked for the county since Vicki's days, I suppose. Purpose of my addressing this group, I think there's some aberrant behavior here that warrants some explanation. The time of day, the circumstances, it's all kind of mysterious. One of the speakers addressed the outcome or consequence, the disposition through court as being a sweetheart deal, I'm here to tell you it was pretty average stuff. After 40 years in the criminal justice system, first time DUI, pretty standard stuff. So to suggest it's abnormal in that regard, it wasn't. There was some curiosity as to the failure of the Highway Patrol to book the defendant at the time of the arrest. Sometimes there are medical issues whereby an ambulance has to transport, certainly in a car crash, and the CHP doesn't want to stand by the hospital room, the ER, for hours or days. Perhaps that was the case here, I do not know. Further, I don't know Mr. Myers, other than through what I read in the paper and, of course, his elected position. But I do believe this board, and I thank Heidi and others for their efforts to bring this forward. I'm anxious to hear about it. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Luann Carlson, and I work for the county office, and I'm only representing myself personally, but I have worked for the county office since 1974. I'm a teacher for the child development program, and personally, my husband was arrested a year ago for a DUI. He did not get arrested. He was way over the limit. But at the same time, he worked for a school district. He was 2 weeks before his probation was over. He lost his job because of the DUI. I just want to have you realize that there's other staff members that have gotten DUIs and have lost their jobs. And I just want the same to go even for the superintendent. I'm not saying he'd lose it, it's up to your decision, but same as, you know, he's a representative for all of us.
Thank you. Going once, going twice. Okay. We'll move on to item 6. At our last board meeting, we asked the attorney of the board to prepare a presentation to clarify board superintendent relations, his job, how he gets it, our job, how we get it, and how they relate, and to be available to answer questions to the board. Just by way of just a little history, Jeremy is not an employee of this board, does not work for us. So we could not go into closed session and talk about it. We could not call each other and talk about it because of the Brown Act. So this was the only forum that the board could get some clarification on our role